This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Wednesday, April 24th, 2019, and my guest is Mark Watson of Soldier Knows Best. Hi, Mark. How are you?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
I'm super. Thanks. I wanted to have you on kind of last week, ideally, but it's good to have you on this week because we actually even have more to talk about regarding this whole Galaxy Fold stuff.
Oh,
it's
man.
It's been a bit of a mess, hasn't it?
It's been crazy. It feels like it's been like a month or 2 months, but it's only been a week since these devices started going out. So it's been a lot of stuff. Yeah,
for sure. So you have one. I don't. And that's another reason I kind of wanted you on the show, because I'm like, oh, wow, you got one. So, okay, there's two parts to this, right? I want to kind of hear your take on the device kind of in a vacuum, in the sense of like you've been using it. What are your thoughts? And then there's the other part of, I really want to discuss the kind of like the fiasco / drama part, because I really think, fiasco is such an overused and cliche word, but I really think it applies here. I think it's hard for me to wrap my head around how this phone even made it in the hands of reviewers right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you noticed today, but Michael Fisher just posted this morning that he has a bulge under his screen at the hinge.
Yep.
He's basically experienced the Verge problem. I don't know if his screen has been damaged by it yet, but he's obviously returning it today, like everyone is. So I don't know. It's just scary,
Yeah, it's weird because originally I thought, okay, maybe just a couple of devices. And, you had the original issue where they just didn't tell us not to take off that screen protector, which is an oversight just with, the packaging and communication. But, with the Verge and a couple other people just with their displays just looking like, all right, there's a gap there where something can get in. That's where it gets scary. And then with Fisher having that happening, I'm very interested to see really how many people are having issues. Like,
right.
I thought it was just a very little.
Totally. I think what's weird to me, and I also just want to make it clear to the listeners, the problems with the display had already happened by the time we recorded last week's show with Martin, but we actually didn't see it until we finished the recording. We recorded exactly a week ago, and it was all happening that morning of the Wednesday. So I didn't include any of that in the podcast. So last week's podcast was really like, hey, we both have been reading about the Galaxy Fold because we don't have one. And we're both kind of excited because everybody seems to be very excited. So this show is more like, we're going to kind of go over all of the intricacies. So here's the thing to me that I want to kind of get your kind of feel on is, do you think that, let's say they have 20 or 30 devices out there. Let's say 30. Let's be generous, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 30 devices. We've seen definitely 3 break, right? I mean, there's Michael's now, there's The Verge, and there's CNBC Todd, right? Todd Hazelton.
Yep.
Those are the 3, I think, that actually, like, there was no peeling of screen protectors going on or anything weird, right?
Right.
So that's 10% within a 10-day period. That's a lot, in my opinion.
That is. Yeah, it's, that all depends on how many are actually out there. But yeah, if we go with those numbers, then that definitely is a cause for concern, where like looking like them delaying the launch is the best thing for them to do. And
yeah.
it kind of makes you go to where, they sent out the video of them doing a durability test of the Galaxy Fold, where they just had the machine folding in and unfolding it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a difference. That's different from, that's a durability test, and this just seems like a design issue. Like somewhere in the design, they messed up with not being able to make sure this thing is sealed up enough. So definitely nothing can get under the display. So yeah, I don't know. Like that looks like they have to go back to the drawing board and remanufacture all the ones that they already did.
I honestly don't think we're going to see this phone until after the Note at this point. I don't want to be pessimist. Look, I'm not here to be the voice of doom because I love this concept and I'm on board with the folding phones. I want to make it clear. This is not a Samsung versus Huawei thing. This is not a folding phones suck thing. I'm not like that. I've been covering phones since the mid 2000s. I get it. This is the way to go. This is one of the directions we want to go. But at the same time, I'm also an engineer, and I look at this thing, and I look at the failure rates, and I look at the boneheadedness of some of the design choices, like this film they applied, clearly after the fact. Clearly in their testing, they found that the initial plastic covering wasn't, going to be strong enough, and they decided to kind of do a permanent screen protector that's very tightly adhered to the screen. And that's why when it was peeled by some journalists by accident, like Marquez and like Mark Gurman from Bloomberg, right? And I mean, they that's a fair mistake, especially if there's no warning. But the fact that it is inset, you know what I'm saying? Like that there is a visible edge to that screen protector or that protective layer, to me, that reeks of like, oh, Band-Aid. Like, they already knew there was some issues with kind of like durability on that screen, and they added an extra layer. And because the layer couldn't interfere with the thing folding, because it probably moves a little bit in the bezels when it folds, mm-hmm. They had to keep a little gap between it and the bezel. And to me, that's when you go back to the drawing board. At that point, you're like, no, we create a new display that's thicker and that slides under the bezel properly. We don't add this kind of Band-Aid solution to it. So that's kind of why I'm like, I think we're going to find out in a month or so what the new release date will be. And it might even be at some like Q3 kind of thing, not a specific date.
Yeah. Did you see the tweet from David Kogan?
I didn't.
Oh yeah. He said he got an email or something from AT&T saying they pushed the release date to June, sometime around mid-June. But again, that's AT&T saying it. It's not Samsung. But yeah, I think you're right. I don't think this is going to be a fix that they can do easily. They have to go back to the drawing board.
I think they have to go back, and I want them to. Like I want them to go back, and if this thing needs a protective layer that needs to be on an extra layer, like let's put that on, but let's put it on so that it's seamless. And let's make sure that there's stuff getting behind the hinge, because I think Dieter totally called it when it happened to him a week ago, that something went under there, and it doesn't, I'm not sure if it's the clay that they used to hold up the phone like you suggested. It could have been just even lint or dust.
Yeah.
And you have the phone, so at the edges, right? Stuff can get in there, right?
Yeah, even like you just look at the screen protector around it, it's just dusty. Like I did a close up with my camera, and it's just like just stuff collecting there. And
that's going to get worse in a month or two. Like I have a lot of lint in my pants, and I look at my Galaxy S10 Plus, my Huawei P30 Pro, my LG G8, which are the phones I'm currently carrying. These are phones that I've had for a month, right, at most. And they're dusty as F. Like I'm like, I cannot imagine how much dust would be inside the hinge of my Galaxy Fold if I had one right now.
Yeah.
How has it been for you? Like you obviously have no issues.
No, I have zero issues. And I like you said before, the form factor, I'm in love with it. Like I really wanted it to be successful. Like I want this one, I want the Mate X to be good. I want all of them to work. Because there's just something about being able to unfold to a tablet. Like I was out for Easter and I was out of the house, and the new episode of Game of Thrones came on, and I normally wouldn't watch it just on a regular phone screen, but I opened the Fold up and loaded up HBO Go, and it worked great. The quality was good enough to where I felt fine just watching that episode on that. So the flexibility of it, I think, is good. And so I've had zero issues. The camera, the display quality is good. The crease is there, but you don't really see it when you're using it. Everything else with the software is mostly there. Right. I think they still do a little bit of tweaking with the software. But everything with this, I'm excited for. So whenever they finally fix it, I'll be one of the first ones to still try to pick it up.
So the question is now, when will we see it? And of course, we can only speculate. My gut, as I said, is we'll see this after the Note 10. We'll see this in the fall.
Yeah.
I don't really think it's going to, they really need to go back to the drawing board. They know that now. Why they didn't know that before, I don't understand. I mean, that's a big mystery.
Do you think they were just trying to be first? Like trying to...
Yeah, I really think I think this was highly marketing driven, highly top down driven, because the engineers must have rebelled at some point, say, this is not going to fly, guys, because the engineers are like that. They're no bullshit kind of people, They're like, hey, this is not going to work. We don't think you should do this. And marketing people are like, come on, you can fix it. You can find a way. I've seen this time and time again as a journalist, and I've seen that internally when I worked at Pebble as well. The struggle that happens between, marketing, product, and engineering, and software and hardware as well, kind of duking it out sometimes. And it's not like people are trying to be malicious. It's just everybody cares and wants to do the best job they can. And the marketing people, they really want to be the first, because to them, it's like, this thing that they've been striving for what, 8 years now, right? To be first, right? And Huawei is clearly knocking on their door. And so is potentially others like Moto with Moto Razr rumors that we're seeing. And then that's really Lenovo, obviously. And then, TCL, I don't think is going to be trying to be, available as a competitor for a while because they're aiming for a lower price point. But there's at least so there's Xiaomi, right? We know Xiaomi's got something. We haven't seen it, but, and LG has got to have something. What do you think, Mark? I mean, LG is like one of the freaking OLED manufacturers that does plastic OLED, right? Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like, I still don't think, I don't understand why Samsung doesn't need to be first. Like, I guess the one that we know for sure that's coming is that Huawei Mate X. And Samsung had them beat on the price. I mean, if people think the Fold is expensive, the Mate X is going to start at around $600 more at $2,600. It's going to have 5G, some other things. But so Samsung, I don't think they even needed to rush it. And even if Huawei beat them to the punch, Huawei's a big company, but I would say at least for the States, the news cycle, it wouldn't be as big as if Samsung launched it, even if they launched it after the fact. So yeah, I'm kind of confused that they launched it, but John Rettinger he said a very good thing in a video I saw recently where he was just like, Samsung probably should have just released it as a developer edition or a developer device.
Totally. That would have been fantastic. That would have also given them some more real life practice kind of use, right? Yeah. And where consumers can still buy it if they want to, but if something goes wrong, it's not going to be like they're trying to sell it as a complete product to just regular consumers, where if you're buying it, you're probably, interested in the tech and trying to have it first and stuff. So that would have been better, but that still wouldn't have counted as like launching first. So if their whole aim is to be first, that probably wouldn't be in according to what they're trying to do. But hindsight is 50-50. Hindsight is like, we can look at it now, but definitely that part would have been the best way to go. No, I completely agree with you. I think that's, look, the reality is, as I said, I cannot wrap my head around how this made it past quality control testing into the hands of the media. I mean, we are a gentle folk as journalists, generally speaking, right? Like we take care of our devices. I don't know if I'm generalizing and it's based on my own anal retentiveness here, but I do take care of the products that I get sent. I have dropped phones. It's always been accidental, and I always feel like gut wrench when it happens because I'm like, oh, how can I, some people are like jonesing to have this phone and I'm klutzy and I dropped it and I always work something out in case I haven't gotten my pictures taken yet. But we're pretty good, right? Generally, like we take care of things. Yeah. And I think, I think I'm fine with the device costing $2,000 and being more fragile than my regular phone because I got to start somewhere. Yeah. As long as I know that, right? Like if I have a $600 pair of shoes and an $80 pair of shoes, I'm going to treat that $600 pair of shoes a little bit more gently. Like I'm not going to go, mountain hiking or go painting a house in them. Right. So I think that, with that, I'm fine with it. If I drop it and it breaks easier than, my S10 for some reason. Okay. But it's just that it shouldn't have these extra little weak points that no matter how you use the phone, it still is it looks like a really good possibility of something breaking. I think that's where they just missed it. Yeah. So, I think ultimately, like I think marketing drove this. They wanted to be first and now they're, and I think it's costing, this is obviously not as bad in terms of money, I think, as them having to recall it later. Also, it was never going to be as bad because they're never going to sell too many of those. Right. But if you look at it, obviously the Note 7 was its own drama and fiasco of its own kind. And that's another thing that shows how Samsung sometimes rushes and doesn't do the testing and, as thoroughly as they could. And in that case, it was an extremely expensive and extremely dangerous endeavor because you're risking the lives of people on airplanes or whatever. In any case, you're always risking the life of people if a phone catches fire anywhere. But it's certainly more dangerous in some situations, like in your home, you burn an entire house down. So to me, it's weird that Samsung somehow did not learn that lesson, or at least there is some disconnect at the corporate level here. And I think this force to be first is really strong with them. I agree with you. They shouldn't worry about it, especially from a U.S. perspective, since Huawei doesn't really have a strong hold here. But think about Asia, right, where Samsung is based. Huawei is huge there and is eating their lunch in many places and in Europe as well. So I think that I can understand their drive to want to be first, but you gotta like seriously, like as soon as I saw the screen protector stuff, I'm like, No, this is a Band-Aid. This is completely a last minute thing they did. And clearly this thing is way less rugged than we expected. And, I wasn't expecting anything super rugged, but man.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, so what do you think about the Mate X? Because that has that display folding outwards. And
okay, I am holding, I'm totally I'm a bigger fan of the design of the Mate X, because I feel like I would much rather have, when it's folded up, have a normal looking phone screen size, basically like a Galaxy S10 Plus or Mate 20 Pro or P30 Pro or something size device when it's closed up. Also like that you can use the rear screen for selfies and stuff when it's folded. But I am really concerned now with durability. That thing's going to be on the outside. We've seen how many dings and scratches people have seen on their Galaxy Fold. How is yours holding up? I mean, do you still have it? Are you sending it back today?
Yeah, I still got it. They're supposed to send me a shipping label. I still haven't gotten it yet. So if you put it in the light and you look at the surface of the phone, are you seeing any of these little dents and stuff that Dieter saw? No, I don't see anything. Yeah, I did some close-up shots yesterday, and I looked back at the footage and I couldn't see anything at all. So besides that crease, that's normal, still ugly, but it's normal.
So yours is in tip-top shape still.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. You probably took really good care of it.
Actually, I didn't. You know what? I actually was I wanted to use it. I used it just like a normal phone. I was leaving it out on my couch, fully open. My dogs jump up on my couch all the time. My dog stepped on it. Okay,
so you were just you were giving it the normal treatment. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, look, it's again, it could just be a failure rate of 10%, and 10% is way too high. So they have to fix it. But the reality is, I think that with Huawei, what I feel more reassured by is that by folding outward, that radius of the fold is much larger.
Yeah.
And I've gone back and looked at some of those hands-on videos that people have done on the Mate X. I was there for the Mate X launch. I got to take photos of it in the initial briefing where we weren't allowed to touch it. But they had a much smaller briefing with very select people later on, and I wasn't invited for that, where they got to touch it. I don't know if you were at that or not. Yeah. So if you look at those videos, the radius is much more rounded. And I think because of that, we're going to see less of a crease. And to me, that might mean that the hinge can be designed to be a little tighter fitting to the radius of the screen when it's closed. And as such, that less debris could get lodged under there. So as much as I'm worried about the screen being so exposed on the Mate X, I'm less worried about failure points at the hinge myself. Yeah. I'm much more concerned about failure points at the hinge on the Fold.
Yeah, so it's they're totally opposites as far as what people are going to be worried about with that display. But I wonder if they delay it. I wonder if they take their time. It's you know what? Let's hold off and try to make sure ours is going to be reinforced, because you don't want to the same thing.
And I hope they go back to the drawing board on that nasty, massive notch inside the Fold. Yeah. I feel they don't even need cameras there at all. I feel that if you think about this for a second, if you open the Fold, right? Mm-hmm. And you hold the rear towards you and the screen away from you, the main screen away from you, the rear towards you, you should now be able to use the main camera system, the big 3 lenses in the back, with the front display for selfies.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So they don't need the front camera, or they might just need it in case you want to use it closed up. Got that. So maybe just that 10 megapixel front camera on the small screen, just for those times when you want to do a video call or something. And then nothing inside. And then, on the outside have the 3 lenses. And if you want to do a selfie, you can just flip the phone over, kind of like what Huawei is doing, and use that tiny little 4.6-inch screen for selfies. The selfies would look so much better.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have as big of a viewfinder, I get that, but for selfies, I think it'd be fine. I don't understand why they put that notch in there. Honestly, I really don't get it.
Yeah. And it's just and I'm even fine with the cameras out there, but it's just that notch can be way smaller.
It's so big, just, yeah. There must be some sensors and stuff in there.
Yeah, that's what I have to think, yeah.
But there's no earpiece there, because the earpiece is in the front, right? You can only make calls with it, with the earpiece if it's closed, because if you open it, you have to use a speakerphone, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I did test it out. You can still hold it up, but you only hear the speaker on the outside, so it's not.
So it's not very good.
Yeah, and you look really weird doing it. But so yeah, it's way
I bet
better
you look pretty weird just sometimes taking photos with it with the main viewfinder and the rear camera.
Oh, that's one of the good things about this is that I've been taking it out, and people had just been coming up to me asking me about it. And what's funny is that a lot of people know about this device, and that's kind of how I gauge like where the interest is. Where just random strangers know about it, kind of similar to my first experience with the first iPhone, where people just run up to me asking me to see it and use it. So it is one of those devices that stand out. And I just really want this to work. I think that this is going to be such a good form factor, but they definitely are behind. They put themselves behind here. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bummer. It's funny when you guys got all briefed last week on Monday. Obviously, they're very selective because they have very few devices, and I knew I wouldn't have made the count no matter what. But I was surprised that they omitted a bunch of people, like the New York Times, like Mashable, like Android Authority, Android Police, /Gear. And it's interesting if you look at the YouTube creators that they included. I mean, obviously, there was you and Marquez and David Kogan, the Unlocker, and a whole bunch of folks, right? Like Enobong. And I was like, that makes sense. But like, what happened to the West Coasters? Like, where's Austin Evans? Where was John Morrison? Like, it was really weird. Did you notice that?
Well, you know what? Sometimes I don't know. When I look at these type of things, I don't ever expect to be, invited out to anything. So I kind of go with it just however it happens, because I don't get invited to everything either. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what their motivation was. I just probably think that they just got it out to just a few people, and maybe next time they'll probably get out to a different set.
I hope they expand it a little bit. I mean, even if they don't include me right away, I'm not too upset. But I just feel it's really weird that like I couldn't make. Normally, I can kind of make a reason for it. It's like, okay, you're picking the top numbers, or you're picking, the publications you have the best relationship with, or whatever. But here it was just like kind of really weird.
It's definitely just and even just look at the kind of the YouTube creators. It was a different mix, which I do like that. But I don't know whether it's just because they had a select number of units or what, but
yeah. Anyway, I mean, the bottom line is that in retrospect, it's probably a good thing they didn't have more units out there.
Yeah.
At the same time, I hope that they expand the program a little bit next time, because I think, journalists, and this is what I do, when I'm not working as a journalist, because I don't do it full time anymore. The podcast is obviously my big deal here, but I have a YouTube channel that's a little thing that kind of like supplement to the show with like unboxings, hands-ons and stuff. But ultimately, most of my work is consulting. I help companies solve exactly the kind of problems Samsung's experienced. In fact, I have worked with Samsung before, and I kind of hold their hand and walk them through all the potential red flags that the media and the consumers are going to see when I do product testing for these companies, and try to iron out those problems, and also try to like highlight things that they haven't as features that they're maybe not putting on the pedestal that they should be, because there's always some hidden feature in there that some, the PR and marketing people didn't cling on to, that it makes it in chips and is actually really cool. So I try to kind of find that. And as a consultant, I have to kind of prioritize and figure out what's best. And that's why I'm kind of like hoping that they do a broader distribution of the next review units with the media, simply because I think the media are a really good test bed. Like, as clearly shown here, we'll find the problems, right? Probably faster than the average customer. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. My gut is we're going to hear back from them in the next month or two with a date or some sort of statement. And then they're probably going to send this out in the fall in time for the holidays. And that will be that for now. And they're probably already working on Gen 2, which will probably be announced as Great Fan for next year at some point.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm already thinking about the second version too. Like,
and I thought, I don't know what Huawei's going to do. I think if Huawei is smart, they're going to learn from this lesson. And, if there's any kind of hesitation, reservation on their end about the durability of the Mate X, that at this point, they're going back already as well. Because now they have bought themselves some time, right? They were never going to be first, and they know that. So they could still be second and, further engineer this thing. And I'm hoping that basically, in a way, Samsung stumbles here will benefit everyone when we finally get folding phones. They will be more, more what we expect a phone to be like in terms of durability and reliability. So let's see what happens, right? I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it's a bad thing, but it could have been way worse if they would have got this to the consumers that really just paid their money and it started happening, later this week.
Can you imagine that nightmare? The nightmare would have been,
Yeah, so they got lucky.
I mean, I still feel like, this is a weird one that Samsung didn't kind of foresee or know that this was going to be an issue and just went ahead. Basically, at any cost, we need to get this thing out on April 26th. I'm like, whoa. It worries me because here's a company that has great engineering know-how, and I have a lot of respect for what they've done. But this is kind of like, this is going to hurt them in a way because people are going to start worrying about what is, if they've done this, what else have they done? Is my Galaxy S10 going to be okay in a year? Stuff like that.
Well, I think, I don't know. I think it's still just, I don't think the credibility is going to take too big. I mean, it's nowhere near as worse as the Note 7.
Oh yeah.
And they bounce back. I don't think people even have reservations. Yeah, this is just kind of if you're charging $2,000 for a phone, it's going to be even harder to get people to want to buy it in the future. So yeah.
I just feel that they also handled the statements in a weird way. I felt that the other thing that I wanted them to learn from the Note 7 debacle was that transparency is key. And I felt like for this Fold thing, they weren't transparent again. It was just the statements were late. They clearly had to go all the way up to Korea and be approved by people and then translated and then blah, 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 and then validly sent back. And they sounded really dry and sounded really not sincere and not really convincing, And a lot of people, when I've said that to them, in Twitter and stuff, in conversations with other journalists, well, Miriam, what the hell do you expect? Seriously, what are they going to do? I'm be transparent. Just be honest. Be saying, look, we something's I don't have to get into details about exactly what it is, but don't make it sound like PR BS, okay? We know how to smell PR BS. And the consumer does too. So I think that's the other problem I have is that they haven't changed their approach since the Note. At first it was very denial-y, you know what I'm saying? They didn't want to kind of accept that it was happening.
But yeah, I think you're right with the press releases. I think it was kind of geared towards the reviewers, right? The press release was towards the people that already had it. But I'm thinking about those consumers who put them down the money. I wonder what what is their response? Did they send an email? Are they calling them, letting them know that they can cancel their orders? What is really going on with those people who put down their hard-earned money to try to buy this thing?
Yeah, I wonder if they actually took the money when they put it down, or if it's one of those Indiegogo Kickstarter where it's you'll get charged when it ships. Yeah. At that point, I think that probably is better. Mm-hmm. Another thing I was kind of wondering to pick your brain about, because again, you have one, so I want to start talking about the product now that the drama and the debacle and the stuff is behind us. We kind of think covered that pretty well. My big question to you is, how many apps do the app continuity properly and how many don't in your experience? Of the average app load that a person would have on their phone, what are we looking at here?
You know what? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so I have one page with 5 across, 6 down, and another page with pretty much that with just my normal apps on it. So there's a good amount of apps that work with it, but my concern is there's 4 or 5 apps in this section that don't work with it at all. And are you talking about the multitasking or app continuity?
The app continuity. So when you start an app in the front and you open it up, Twitter, for example, we know doesn't work. Maps, obviously, and Gmail we know works. Most Google apps work. I'm just curious, what's been your experience? Have you been surprised have some apps surprised you in working, and have some apps surprised you in not working?
Okay, my bad. I had a little brain fart there. But yeah, so with that, all the apps work fine with that. My issue with that is just that when you're actually opening the device or closing it, my finger accidentally touches either the front display or the bigger display. And so when I switch over to whatever screen, the app is in a different place than where I started. So I'm accidentally liking posts on Instagram or, doing stuff. And so it needs some way to kind of, see that you initiated the app continuity by opening or closing the device, and maybe notice that, okay, this tap was probably accidental. So let's not actually, have that happen. So, yeah, and that happens a lot. That happens most of the time. So I I mean, it works. All the software works with it, but that's the one thing that just kind of gets on my nerves.
Right. You know, when you open Twitter from the front screen to the main screen and you get those vertical bars on each side, at the bottom right of the screen, there is that button to relaunch the app. Yeah. I'm wondering if you think, and because again, you've used it, I haven't, would you think that Samsung should have maybe added a setting that would automatically do this with apps that don't support app continuity? So basically, imagine a setting you can turn on, and when you have Twitter running in the front and you open it, it obviously is not app continuity supported. And so now it's starting with bars. And instead of starting with bars, it just automatically restarts.
Yeah. That would be good. And with that, like I noticed it sometimes with just the way some apps like Instagram work, where when I do open it up, it just refreshes. So I'm never going to be like really where I was in my timeline. And that's because it's kind of how Instagram works. But yeah, if Samsung can do as much in the software to mitigate that, that would definitely be better. Yeah,
there's a lot of apps that seem to, when you switch, between apps, you come back to them and they're not where you were.
Yeah.
And like, I don't personally, that's like an app design issue. I was a software engineer for a long time working in video games, and it always rubs me the wrong way when I see that kind of design. I'm like, who thought of that? Like, seriously, like, don't you use the app every day? Ugh. But I think that honestly is my biggest kind of concern as somebody who doesn't have a Fold, has seen lots of videos and studied everything. Is I think the software experience looks really polished and solid to me overall, but it's the app continuity not working with some apps that would, I think, rub me the wrong way. But other than that, is there something that you found that you would give feedback to Samsung to do better, like some sort of UI-based weirdness like that, other than the thing that you just mentioned where it should maybe filter out some taps when you open and close the screen?
Yeah. What I was saying earlier with the multitasking, trying to have multiple apps open on your screen at once, it has a little bar that you swipe over from the right-hand side, and that gives you a list of apps that will work in that. And it just has I have 4 or 5 apps that don't work. They just automatically go to full screen. So I asked Samsung, how does that filter out? Is that Samsung doing that, determining which apps do that, or are capable of that, or is that just solely up to the app developers? And they said they'll get back to me on that. But other than that, it just works like the S10 Plus. The software like you said, is polished, and for a bigger screen like this, I think with the little changes that they've made with the software over the past year, it does help, even with using the Fold unfolded and one-handed use. But other than that, the software works great. Just that small screen on the front is just it's just too small.
I said that the day I saw this phone, I was like, this small screen. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, if you're using an iPhone 5 or SE of some kind, it'll be fine. But most Android users have graduated to much larger screens, and I don't think the Android experience is as polished on small phones anymore. And so it's definitely an issue. I don't understand why they didn't make it like a full front screen, even with a little bit of bezel, go crazy, like 21:9, 22, 23:9 aspect ratio. It wouldn't have solved the width issue, but maybe a bit less bezel would have solved the width by adding like 5 millimeters in width. And it would have looked so much sexier to have a full front display, basically, even if it was a little weird and long. Yeah. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah. It works. Like, I don't hate it. I don't love it. It actually makes me use my phone less when I'm out, because I don't like to stay on it too long, the small screen. But I think for most consumers, they really need to make the front display be able to be the primary display, instead of right now, the unfolded, when the display is open, when the fold is open, that's the primary display. I think they need to change that and swap it out, because it does get a little awkward when you're out with friends and you need to check something on your phone. And if you unfold it, it just really makes it look like you're not even paying attention anymore. So, so they need to make. Go ahead.
Peace out, guys.
Yeah, I'm just checking my email. Trust me, I'm not watching a movie on it. But no.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But the other thing, but maybe, so how when you check your phone in a meeting, I mean, people kind of give you the side eye because you're not supposed to be on your phone. But if you have a tablet, then nobody gives you the side eye because you're clearly taking notes or something. I wonder how the Fold changes that dynamic, Do people take you more seriously when you have it unfolded at a meeting in front of you? No. It'd be interesting to find out.
Well, it definitely needs to add stylus support, and then they'll definitely take you more seriously.
Yeah, totally. What's been your experience with this one thing that I saw a lot of people complain about with the fact that when you have a layout of apps in Windows or whatever in tiers, right, on the big screen, and you close it, you lose your layout.
Yeah.
Couldn't they fix that? Like, couldn't they have done a software thing? Like, that's software. Like, that could be patched in the future. But, why did you even ship that without somehow able to save the state? I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, the only way you can kind of do that just to hit the home button. But yeah, if you do close it and stuff like that, you do lose it. Yeah, it's just little things like that. I think should be, like you said, easy fixes. That if this thing would have launched, a software update could have done it. But yeah, and it's just using these multiple apps is something that it does take a little while to kind of get used to as far as figuring out, okay, when can I resize it? How many apps can I have on the screen, and then when can I resize the amount of that? Just takes a couple of days of getting used to that, but it's a good start. But I think they could have done more with it.
But I mean, ultimately, you've had this for almost 10 days. Do you really feel that it's a productivity boost? I mean, like, are you on board? Are you saying that this is going to become the thing that everybody has, or do you think there's still lots of room for regular phones? I mean, other than price, taking price out and all the reliability stuff out of the equation for a sec. Assuming 2-3 years down from the road, we have phones that fold, that are reliable, that can be dropped without too much trouble, that etc. Do you think people are do you think it's gonna be like the Note, where some people go for the big phone and some people prefer the regular phone, or do you think that it's just gonna become universal?
100%. I think it's here to stay. Like, I'm sold on the concept. And it's one of those, I think, when people really get a chance to use it, like this is one device where if you're able to go into the store and try it out and feel it, I think people will see that, okay, it is legit. Like, it doesn't feel like it's easy to break or anything like that. So I think the form factor is something that people just kind of get used to. But yeah, I see this as that extra thing, besides the Note. If you want some more productivity, you want a bigger display, but you don't like carrying a tablet, I think this form factor is here. And eventually I could see a lot of the top smartphones, like their pro level phones or whatever companies release, having this ability to be able to unfold. But again, that main front display needs to be able to be used like a normal one before we even get to that point. So, yeah,
I think it'll be very interesting. And I also think it's be interesting to see what other form factors this folding quote unquote revolution is going to bring, because the form factors like what we saw TCL show at MWC, or like what the Razr is supposed to be like, basically folding, but flip phone vertically held kind of design, right? Yeah. So that's, to me, another thing we might see. What if your phone that you have today stays the same size when it's open, but then folds into half the size that it is today? And slips in your pocket, and eventually gets thin enough to be, just a little thicker than what we have today when it's folded. I think there's a future for that, and I think that's another thing that's going to come out of this. Yeah,
even when it moves over to tablets, you're able to have a tablet the size of an iPad Mini, and then it unfolds to the size of an iPad Pro.
Oh, like my God, yeah.
Yeah,
wow, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, it's a lot of good innovation here. They just got to execute it, and I think that'll happen with time.
Yeah, it'll happen. I'm going to miss glass, though. It's such a nice material to touch.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Corning is working on folding glass. I know it sounds crazy, but they are. And I wonder how far away that is, because that's obviously what we want, right?
Yeah.
And it's folding, really, it's more like bending glass. So it's not glass that's going to have a sharp crease like the Galaxy Fold. It's more like what I described earlier with the Mate X, where it can be very round without breaking, and maybe even do a full U-turn around, but it needs some radius to do that, right? That's kind of what Corning is working on. Mm-hmm. And if they perfect that, I think we're going to see a lot more phone, what we're now, calling as journalists the innie versus the outie, right? The innie being the Fold, the outie being the Mate X. So I think we're going to see a lot more outies if they can do the glass that bends. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is an exciting time. Like, I just haven't felt like this excited about a phone. Like, there's a lot of great phones out there, but this is one phone that you really feel like you are using something that you've never used before, or being able to. It
feels like the future, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I think that, with this kickstart, and then eventually in 5 years when Apple does theirs, you'll see, like, I think this is, a lot of people hesitant. I think it's mostly probably due to the price. But once they nail it down, I mean, it's going to be here to stay. Like
I
I'm
almost
excited.
think that should be the title of the podcast. When Apple does this in 5 years,
Yeah,
because it's really going to take them that long. I am certain of it. Even if they've been working on it for a while, I am absolutely certain it's going to take them a while to do it, because they're going to resist it at first, like they did with the big screens, and then eventually we're going to get it when they feel it. They can do a good job, as it were. One last thing about the Fold. I mean, feel free to add more. We are not in a rush here, but I wanted to kind of touch on this because I put it in the show, in the topics, and I'm going to put it in the show notes as well, is that 3-minute review video that Joanna Stern did for the Wall Street Journal. Wow. Rough for Samsung. But I do know Joanna. I used to work with her at Engadget. And, she's kind of no nonsense, and Wall Street Journal's audience is not, early adopter tech savvy folk. They're everyday people from all walks of life. How do you feel about that video if you've seen it? And do you think that she nailed it or not? Like,
I liked it. Like, as far as like
me too, yeah.
The presentation and her approach to it and the wittiness of it, like it was.
She's always funny in her videos, so that's.
Yeah, and I looked at the comments, and I guess people were just like, "Oh, it's not professional," or they were expecting more. I guess because it's the Wall Street Journal, but I don't know. I think she nailed it on the head as far as the excitement for it, and then these issues, and then just kind of nailing the straight to the point in that short 3 minutes. So I personally had no problem with it.
I mean, I'd rather her do that. I personally thought it was a little damning, but I do agree with her. I do feel that you can't, especially if you're writing for a big national paper like that, you can't review this phone right now. You kind of have to put it on hold. And so she did. And then she pointed out the things she liked, and she pointed out the things that were a little egregious, which, again, we can't absolve Samsung for not screwing this up. They should know better. And this is the thing that worries me the most, is that it's like, why are we kind of seeing a mini version of Hueso with the Note 7, and the way you're reacting and the way you're defensive about it and the way you're doing stuff? It's like, come on, Samsung, get your PR and marketing game up. If you're going to want to be first at things, you also need to accept that failure is a risk, and you need to have a mitigation plan in place to deal with that, and not just kind of be like humming and hawing about it,
Yeah.
Even Apple admitted they couldn't make the, what was it called? The charging pad thing, right?
Oh, AirPower.
Yeah. I mean, hey, at some point you need to cut your losses, so I just feel like, I'm not saying they shouldn't ship this thing ever. I think they should. I want it to ship. I'm super excited about it. I'm just saying that, I would have liked to see them react in a much more humble and transparent way about it,
Yeah. Like I said, I think their press release was aimed for the press instead of like, because I mean, I think they explain it, but like you said, I just think that when you're looking at consumers, you have to be maybe a little bit more gentle, or maybe go into more detail about, exactly what is the next steps. But,
yeah. And you did a video about that. I will put it in the show notes. By the way, do you have a playlist for all your Galaxy Fold videos?
I don't, but I will by the time this.
Awesome, please do, because I would love to include it, because you do have like 4 or 5 videos now, and it'd be great to have them all in one place for the viewers, or the listeners rather. So show notes, description, and the podcast when it gets published. Check it out. There'll be a bunch of links. And I'll also link Joanna's video, and I'll link The Verge's review, because I think of all the reviews that I've read, of the few that actually did a full review, I feel that they hit all the different issues and all the different, positives really well. So I'm honestly, I just can't wait. I want to see this thing come out. I want it, I hope it's not, my gut tells me it's going to be after the Note, but I want it to be before that. If it can pull it off, great. And I can't honestly wait to get my hands on the Mate X, because honestly, a big Huawei fangirl. So there we go.
I can't wait. I mean, like I said, I like this thing. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be kind of hard to go back to just using one single screen phone, like as far as the size. But have you completely abandoned using any other phone for this time? Yeah. You're like, I'm done, right? Yeah, I've just been using the Fold, and I went one day just using the front screen, and I was gonna do all of this for my review, but I just went one full day just like using the front screen to see how that works. But the form factor is great. Like I use it all the time, and I have my high hopes for it, but we'll see.
Remember, this is not live, so any videos we're going to see by the time this is published in 2 days that you've added, any more videos you're working on with the Fold?
Well, I was working on my review, but I don't, I kind of don't want to do, I'll just do another a video, just kind of a follow up of my entire experience with my week or so with it. So awesome. I'm not going to call it a review, but yeah, it'll be kind of just like a wrap up of it.
A summary. Yay. I'm looking forward to that. I love your videos. All right. So let's talk about some other stuff. It's going to be hard to talk about other stuff now, but OnePlus 7 has made it official that the launch is going to be on May 14th in New York. It's exciting. I hope to be there. So, maybe I'll see you then.
Yeah.
But this is exciting news. We know that there's 2 phones, maybe 3 if you count the 5G variants. I mean, this is rumors at this point, but it's pretty solid rumors, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely know with the, well, not definitely, but again, with the 90 hertz screen is going to be something that's pretty, I'm looking forward to it. They really are saying that their display is going to be like something that really changes the game or something.
I don't know. The Asus ROG phone, ROG, whatever. Some people hate when I say ROG. I've gotten really nasty grams on Twitter about saying ROG. So ROG. The ROG phone has a 90 hertz OLED and it's great, but I mean, it's not mind blowing.
Well, the thing about OnePlus is just again, that is kind of working with also the price point and everything else they execute with the phone. So, right. OnePlus has been really good with their software and just hardware standpoint. They make a really good phone. And if they add these extra things at it and then keep that price down too, that would be something that I'm really happy for.
But we know that's coming on the Pro, right? Not the regular. So the question is, how expensive is that Pro? See, I have this feeling, and I don't want to be like, I'm not trying to sound negative here. I'm on board with paying more, giving OnePlus more money for a better phone than what they've been doing. But at the same time, I don't think they should abandon their core customer base of the $500-$600 phone, and it's why we're seeing 2 phones from all the rumors. We're seeing the OnePlus 7, which will be the accessible, affordable $500-$600 flagship. And then we're going to see a Pro, and I'm much more excited about the Pro because I really don't care. Like, I would spend $1,000 on a phone. So, if OnePlus can bring on even more features at that price point, or if they charge $750 for it and it's got equivalent features to $1,000 phone, I'm in. I'm on board. We can't go wrong here. So this 90 hertz Quad HD display sounds great, and then the triple camera system sounds great, and for better or for worse, even though it's not water resistant, that's the pop-up selfie, I think, is going to be cool because it's going to give us a bezel-less front display, Yeah,
and like you said, the big thing is the price. Like I'm making an assumption that the OnePlus 7 Pro is not going to cost,
$1,000.
Yeah, if they can get it still in the 800 range,
exactly,
or something like
750, 800 would be a really sweet spot.
And then if they release the 5G version for $1,000.
Correct.
That would be, that would be pretty crazy because, all these other 5G phones coming from, Samsung, others, is going to cost more. So, yeah, that's going to be good. But like you said, their core audience, the people who just want that OnePlus 7, they can still keep a 5 in front of that final price for that. I think they're great. Man, yeah. Even if they keep it under $650, they're still good. And the fact that they're switching over to having these 2 devices is only going to help them. But yeah, it comes down to the price of OnePlus. I'm happy with their phones. They make good phones, but it ultimately does come down to the price.
Absolutely. We'll really see. And then the other thing that I think is going to be interesting, to me at least, is how they're going to execute on, competing in 5G price-wise. Because you're saying 1,000 is a good price, but we all know the Mi Mix 3 5G from Xiaomi, which I know is not going to come to the US or whatever, but was 699 euros or something at MWC or 640. I mean, it's really affordable. Mm-hmm. So here's kind of why my theory is we haven't heard rumors of this, but we might actually see a OnePlus 7 5G as well. Like we might see 5G variants of both phones simply because to kind of hit that price point of 5G, that's the most affordable 5G phone on the planet. At least if I were OnePlus, that's what I would do.
Wow, and that I haven't thought about that, but that would be crazy. Yeah, if they can do a 5G version of both of those and get that price down on that OnePlus.
And maybe it's going to be in the fall, like how the OnePlus there's a T model, the 7T. So maybe the 7T will have a 5G variant, but because maybe by then the X55 chipset from Qualcomm will be out, so which is more integrated. So I don't know. I think that they cannot just launch $1,000 5G phone if they want to be competitive when you know that Xiaomi is coming with. And again, this doesn't matter for US markets, but I think it matters for foreign markets. For the US though, what's your thought on T-Mobile and OnePlus? Are we going to see these two phones launch on T-Mobile, or are we going to see maybe the 5G model be the first T-Mobile phone in the US that's 5G? Or I'm throwing these at you and you can feel free to elaborate and answer. Or are we going to see a partnership with other carriers in the US like AT&T and Verizon? What are your thoughts on all that?
I don't know. I think they may just stick with T-Mobile. I think they don't want it to go out, get too big, especially with working with 5G. So I think they may just try to stick with T-Mobile, at least for this first go around on it.
Right. But do you think there'll be a 5G version on T-Mobile first? The first 5G phone they're going to sell is going to be on T-Mobile.
If they keep that, I think they'll work with that partnership. I think they may do that.
That might be cool, right?
Yeah.
That might be bragging rights for them.
Yeah, that would be definitely. I know T-Mobile would be happy.
Especially if somehow they can launch it before the Galaxy S10 5G.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if at this thing, John Ledger comes on stage and goes, oh, and by the way, 5G is going live in 2 weeks when we ship the 5G phone on T-Mobile.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Boom. I mean, it could happen because remember, the thing about T-Mobile is that they're sub 6 primarily right now, their 5G rollout. And that's much more practical than millimeter wave. Millimeter wave is obviously very much the future, but it's also much more complex and expensive to achieve today.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, and I think OnePlus just want to keep it simple. You don't want to go get too crazy with it. Just keep it simple. Go the easiest route. And as long as the 5G is it's good. The 5G version of the phone it works. Decent. I think that's what they should do. Yeah,
I'm really stoked about this whole thing. And a chance to go to New York to see y'all.
Yeah,
I'm super excited.
And how cool is OnePlus? They actually sell tickets for the fans to actually go to the event. That's
kind
so
of weird, honestly.
Oh, you don't like that?
No, I think, look, if they can get away with doing it, clearly they can. Kudos to them. The more the merrier, right? It's just such a weird, we're going to, it's $20, right? Anybody can really afford that. I think that's at least very accessible, which is really nice. But I just feel like, really, OnePlus, it's showmanship. And I kind of appreciate it that way, know?
You know what's crazy? Their fan base is ridiculous, it ridiculously good. And, they have people waiting out in the stores, like they did with the 6 with the
I was there
in Times Square. Yeah, and for OnePlus, which is not a at least in the US, not a big name company. They generate excitement for it, and they're very fan focused, so I think it's cool. I think it's cool to be able to give their fans a chance to kind of try the phone out and be there. Yeah.
No, I think it's awesome. I just think I wish it was free like that, would be a nice little nod to the fans. First come, first serve kind of thing. But at the same time, it's OnePlus. It's going to be a big party, and I can't wait. I think this is the phone that I'm the most excited about of all the OnePlus phones so far. I knew the OnePlus 6T was going to be a big deal, but it was a T phone. This is a main phone, And now we have a Pro version. I'm totally 100% on board. Because I've always felt like the OnePlus was holding back a little bit because of its price, and that's fair. But what can OnePlus do without holding back? Question mark.
It's true. That's
right?
True. I know.
And that's where I'm at in my brain right now.
Yeah. Go Pro, but still keep that price hopefully lower.
And we know with their BBK, umbrella partnership that, that means that they have a lot of access to Oppo parts bin, and Oppo makes incredible hardware. We're going to talk about the Oppo Reno, which is now being launched in Europe this morning, in fact, and there's some content out there. David Roddock's been in Switzerland for a few days, posting great photos, by the way, with some of them with the Oppo Reno. And of course, I don't know if you saw, Super Saf had a kind of was the first to show the phone on his on a YouTube channel. And I watched that video last night before going to bed. So I'll link all this in the show notes. But before we jump on that, there's a lot of news out there, phone news that happens sometimes that falls through the cracks. Because, it's busy and the podcast is weekly, but we can't catch everything. And I saw this one at the time and I forgot to add it to the show 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. But Palm finally released a standalone version of that little phone of theirs at least it's available, I think, unlocked in some places and then on Verizon for $200. With some software optimizations to make the battery life last and some improvements to the camera. These improvements are going to come to the non-standalone version. Have you played with the Palm? What are your thoughts? Does this matter? Do you care? Etc.
Yeah, it's such a cute little device. Like I always keep a special place for it in my heart. But no,
me too.
you know what? The unfortunate thing about it, it's just 2-3 years too late. Like I think now we have smartwatches that can give you that ability to not take your
my
phone
Galaxy
out.
Watch does a better job.
Yeah.
Other than taking photos, it doesn't do that.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of this device is the Palm phone is to not feel like you have a phone with you or, but you just get a smartwatch that, does 3G. Just get a smartwatch.
But I think for some people, it might be like they like the cuteness factor and they don't need much and they don't maybe use their phone much for like productivity stuff. And with the new optimizations, the battery might just last them long enough for the day. Who knows? I mean, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've always said they should have a standalone version, so I'm just happy to see they have one now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like they're sticking with it. And again, they're still trying to improve it. So as long as the price doesn't get too bad and they make some of these improvements, it'll be there. It's a fun little device, but hopefully it'll last the test of time.
So let's go back to that Oppo Reno because I'm kind of stoked about it. This is the second phone on the market with a periscope style zoom lens. Mm-hmm. It's very similar in terms of numbers as the P30 Pro. It can do 10 times hybrid zoom. I don't know what the physical zoom is of the lens, but it's a fixed zoom. It doesn't change mechanically. So just like the Huawei P30 Pro, it basically has a fixed amount of optical zoom, and then it can do some enhancements with hybrid by using two lenses, the two sensors, the main 48 megapixel sensor that the Oppo Reno has versus the 40 on the Huawei. It's really interesting to me that I'm seeing a lot of parallels between those two phones right now in the implementation. Very cool. F over 1.7, 48 megapixel OIS main sensor that does the quad Bayer implementation. So it basically does sub-pixel interpolation for color, which basically is exactly what Huawei's been doing since the P20. And doesn't have the yellow pixels like the Huawei does. There's RGB setup, I believe. This is a Sony sensor, actually, IMX586, I'm pretty sure. It's a very popular sensor. It's on a lot of phones, including the Honor View 20. And so I don't know. I'm stoked to see what this is going to do. I like to see competition, and I'm happy that Oppo is basically kind of mimicking what Huawei's done. So what's your take on all that?
Yeah, all that is great, and that possible 5G version of it as well.
Right, so right. And the wide angle. There's a wide angle I forgot to mention, by the way. There's a wide angle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the more competition, the better. And they've always been a company that has been around. They were one of my first phone companies to send me a phone to review.
Really? Wow.
10 years ago. It's good to see that they're consistent. They're, again, like you said, they're very close and similar to OnePlus. And then now they're putting some of these features that goes at Huawei. The more competition, the better. And it looks like the people are trying to get creative with the cameras, and the zoom looks good. So what caught my eye is that, other than the good main sensor at f/1.7 48 megapixel with OIS, is that they obviously have OIS on the zoom, but the f-stop on that zoom lens is f/3, just 3.0, which is slightly better than the 3.4 that Huawei has. So it might be a little better in low light, which is one of the trouble with those zoom lenses. Well, we'll have to see. The other thing is Snapdragon 855. It's pretty fully loaded. It has a 6.6-inch AMOLED display with no notch, no nothing, just full screen. And that cool, kind of wedge-shaped pop-up camera thing that also has the flash for the rear camera on the back of it. Mm-hmm. What do you think of the pop-up stuff? I mean, obviously,
it's cool, but you lose water resistance. Do you think it's a stopgap until we can do under display front cameras? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I never had a problem with notches, but it looks to be there's a few people that don't like the notches, so I think it'll be fine. There with the Find X, I mean, that worked great. I mean, I actually like that a little bit better, the way that motorized function works. But yeah, I think it's here to stay. I think people don't want any type of bezels. They don't want any type of notch. And yeah, we lose some things, but I think most people will be fine with it.
I mean, I feel that the punch hole is definitely better. To me, it goes away much more. And so I'm okay with that. But I do feel that if you can do full screen, obviously, let's do full screen. But the question is, are you willing to sacrifice water resistance for a pop-up camera right now or not? That, I think, is the big question. And I suppose that depends on who you are and how you treat your phones, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Like I personally haven't broken a phone with any type of water damage, but some people have. Some people are more prone to drop their phones. Like I like to use my phones without cases. Some people are, they have to have a case on it. So it really does depend on the person. But I just think as long as the consumer is aware of it, I think now a lot of consumers just automatically assume every phone is going to be water resistant. But yeah, as long as it is, then
that's the danger. It's like, oh, is that a screen protector? Peel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that I think it's a stopgap, but it's an interesting stopgap. I like the fact that form factors are built around this idea of having a slider of some kind or pop-up of some kind. We've seen obviously the Oppo Find X, and we've seen the various pop-up cameras, and even the Mi Mix 3, which has a mechanical slider that solves that problem. And it's very addictive. Click, 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 click. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So I think all of this is good. And I really am looking forward to getting in the Oppo Reno. I hope that Oppo sends me one when they finally have them available. The last Oppo phone I reviewed was the Oppo R17. I haven't mentioned it much on the show, but have you played with that one?
Yeah, actually, I need to do my video on that. I haven't done a video on that
that
yet.
phone.
Yeah.
I feel that it's a really good mid-ranger. As a Snapdragon 710. 710 is kind of like between the 6 and 800 series, and just recently replaced by the 730. So it's Snapdragon 845 detuned, basically. So it's speedy, it's fast. The finish on that phone is absolutely gorgeous, the R17. I don't know if you have the same color as me. I've got that kind of bluish unicorn pink, shimmery thing in the back. But it's matte. It's a matte glass. It's really cool. And the camera is, again, really high quality. It took some really good photos. I did it with me at MWC, and I took some really good photos. And then it has a telephoto and a time of flight. It doesn't have a wide angle, which is really unfortunate. I feel the wide angle is really more important than telephoto these days.
It is, yeah.
But overall, it's a great phone. I enjoyed it, and I would definitely say that I would recommend it. And it very much looks and feels like a OnePlus 6T.
Yeah,
the teardrop notch, in-display fingerprint sensor. Pretty much, in many ways, this is where you can see the Oppo OnePlus equivalency going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like that phone. So
it's a good time to be in. We have a really good time where
it's just
so many.
So lucky.
It's so many good phones out from everybody. Like it's hard to make a bad phone, but it's totally a good time.
One last thing before we go, I didn't put it in the notes, but I wanted you to kind of pick your brain about this because it kind of limped on the radar. We mentioned it on the show 2 weeks ago, but we didn't really have a chance to kind of get into detail. The Samsung A80, the one with the rotating camera slider thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Where, basically like Oppo did a phone like that where it's basically your rear facing
back
cameras
in the day.
Just
totally. But this is basically to kind of make the screen bezel-less so it's a slightly different implementation, but it's really cool, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like you can see Samsung kind of just like using this as a test phone for when they finally bring this over to their, the S11 or.
I love that they do that. I love that they've been using the high-end A series lately to first phones that they had with 4 cameras on the A9 or whatever it was last year. And then now we got this new one with this really cool module that kind of flips over. Yeah.
And that's cool. That's the way I think, like you said before with the Galaxy Fold, you want to use those rear facing cameras as much as you can. So you might as well be, hopefully can use those as replace those with replace your front facing selfies. And then I'm also just really excited about portrait mode for video. Like it still looks, it looks a little rough around the edges, but I'm excited for that. And the Snapdragon 855 can handle it. So I'm ready to really see how that really comes out, because I think that's going to be a game changer once they finally flesh it out.
Yeah, me too. I feel like, this is good stuff. So I don't know. I think we'll have to see how it goes, but I feel that I like seeing this form factor experimentation that's going on right now, because we've just been dealing with slabs of glass and metal and plastic for too long, and it was getting very boring. People who tell me that phones are boring right now, I'm like, seriously, look around. It's not boring. There's lots going on.
No, so, it's not boring, but it's always room for innovation, and that's where we're at. And I think these next couple of years are going to be interesting as people try to get rid of the notch and the go with the motorized cameras. But then after that, in a couple of years, hopefully we can get those under display, sensors and cameras, and that'll be sweet.
Totally. Well, listen, we should wrap it up. Do you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet? Obviously, Soldier Knows Best is your YouTube channel, but I want you to tell them about your Twitter, Instagram, whatever else you got.
Yeah. Soldier Knows Best YouTube. I have all the links to my social media down below. My social media is kind of all over the place. Like on Instagram, I'm Mark Watson. On Twitter, I'm Soldier Know Best without the S at the end of knows. But yeah, just go to one of my YouTube videos and I'll have all those links down below, and also my main YouTube channel page. And so I'm that's pretty much the best place to find me is on YouTube, and you'll find me everywhere else from there. Yeah,
and folks, don't forget, subscribe to Mark's channel and like the videos and all that good stuff. Tell your friends. You want to. There's lots of great content there. You know where to find me. I'm at Tank Girl on Instagram and Twitter. That's TNKGRL, like Tank Girl, the comic book without the vowels. And thankfully got those two handles, but I did not get it on YouTube. So on YouTube, it's youtube.com/Miriam Jouar, my full name spelled out. If you don't know how to spell my name, go to my Twitter. You'll see my name there. Put that down with no spaces and you get to the YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel, it's a small channel, but it does have, pretty regular content, a couple of videos a week. I generally do unboxings. I like unboxings a lot, but I also do hands-on, some reviews, some interviews, some content that anything related to mobile technology. And of course, I count cars into mobile technology because they're packed with technology today. So there's a bit of car content as well as you know, I every now and then have an episode on the podcast that's car centric, generally EVs and stuff, because I'm a big fan of that. And speaking of, if you just stumbled on the podcast and you're kind of wondering, like, what is this? Well, mobiletechpodcast.com is the URL for the show. You can find the RSS feed there. We're on a whole bunch of platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, Spotify, it turns out, TuneIn Radio. So you can listen to the show weekly on all these platforms. You can subscribe. I hope you do. Tell your friends. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tell your friends and like the videos, all that good stuff. I also want to thank our sponsor. We've had Audible as a sponsor for a really long time on the show, and they are awesome. If you like audiobooks, if you like reading, but for some reason cannot read because you're driving all day or something, audiobooks are definitely the solution, and audible.com is the place to go for audiobooks. So check them out. They have a great selection. Some of the books are read by the authors, which I really feel is a cool experience. You can get a special deal, which is 30 days free trial by signing up at the link below. So 30-day free trial. There's a link in the show notes. It's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. That's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. I want to thank Audible for being a long-time sponsor, and go check them out and get those 30 days free trial if you are not already a member. And that's it, folks. Thanks so much, Mark, for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
It was great being here.
Yeah, let's have you on in the future. Maybe we'll do it when the Fold finally ships and we can compare notes. It'll be pretty cool.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned, folks. We'll have another show next week. And until then, cheers.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.